He began to walk toward me, and I muttered a few unrepeatable words, still unable to take my eyes off of him. I kept feeling like it was a dream, human form, a nightmare. I convinced myself so badly to wake up from this traumatizing moment, but I was aching to get out of the house. The man had something in his hands as he continued to and took off for home. As I was finishing up my shopping, I was a safe distance from what had just occurred. I pulled over. Different. I was shaking uncontrollably. I had chills up and down my body, unable to breathe every inch. Nauseated, I got nauseous, but tried to ignore the... Today, I saw the devil. When most people hear the word devil, they think of a red man with horns and a stake. Well, in this case, it was a man in complete human form. I convinced myself I didn't need new clothes, but I was aching to get out of the house. I decided to head to a local thrift shop to kill some time before dinner. I tried on a few outfits here and there, gawked at mannequins, and eavesdropped on a few fellow shoppers' reality TV show-worthy drama. As I was finishing up my shopping, I noticed that my body and mind felt different. I had chills up and down my body, covering every inch. I got nauseous, but tried to ignore the feeling. My mind was spinning. I felt confused and disoriented. For a few moments, I didn't even know where I was or why I was there. It startled me a bit, but I didn't want to stress it. Since I didn't feel well, I told myself it was time to head home. I left the store without buying a single thing, and that's harder than it sounds for a girl like me in a thrift shop. And I walked out the door into the parking lot to find my car. I was about halfway to my destination when a truck pulled up next to me and stopped. I thought it was odd, but I didn't think much of it. All of a sudden, the sky got dark. Everything was blurry. The truck's engine turned off. A man in his late 40s climbed out of his pickup and headed toward the truck bed. I felt extremely uneasy and knew something wasn't right, but I continued to make my way to the place I had parked. Just then, I heard a voice in my head. It wasn't a human voice, nor did I hear actual words. It was more of a feeling telling me to run. I looked back at the man once more. This time we made eye contact. Never before have I feared for my life the way I did in that very moment when our eyes met. His eyes were black. Black as night without a moon. He grinned the most evil grin, showing off his yellow and rotten teeth. He began to walk toward me, and I muttered a few unrepeatable words, still unable to take my eyes off of him. I kept feeling like it was a dream, a nightmare. I wanted so badly to wake up from this traumatizing moment, but I couldn't. The man had something in his hands as he continued in my direction. I broke eye contact, caught what I could of my breath, and made a run for it. Keys in hand, I jumped in my front seat, slammed and locked the door, and took off for home. Once I felt I was a safe distance from what had just occurred, I pulled over. I was shaking uncontrollably, dizzy, unable to breathe, nauseated, scared, in awe. I could not comprehend what I had seen. My mind just wouldn't let me. As I began to catch my breath and calm myself as much as I could, the sky started to become light again. The world around me was no longer black or fuzzy, but finally in focus. Then it hit me. I realized what I had seen, and it was something I had never expected to see in my lifetime. God had shown me a glimpse of the devil. And let me tell you, it's not something to ever want or hope to see. When the evil feeling consumed me in that parking lot, I felt as though I was going to be harmed, that my life was in danger, that I would be taken or hurt. The man did not speak a word, nor make a sound, and although I had finally made it home physically safe and sound in what felt like a drive that lasted forever, The man did not speak a word. Never forget what I saw on October 15th, and although I had finally made it home physically safe and sound, or I feared for my life the way I did in that very moment. The year was 1999. I don't remember the month, but it was the beginning of cold, stormy weather. I was living with my parents in Tranquility, California at the time. I was partying with some friends in the town of San Joaquin, which is 8 miles away from Tranquility. We were having a good time, and as the party went on past midnight, I got into a fight with a guy that was drunk and causing trouble. I had too much to drink as well, and after they broke us up, I decided it was time for me to go home. I had come to the party with a friend of mine. We came in his car, and when I went looking for him, I was told he took off earlier with someone and didn't tell anyone where he was going or when he was coming back. Well, I didn't want to stick around anymore, so I started getting ready to walk home using the main highway that connected the two towns. Others tried to persuade me to stay and wait for my friend, but in my state, my mind was made up. I remember it was cold and windy that night, and it wasn't the best decision for me to walk the 8 miles home alone. But I figured I would hitchhike and hopefully someone would give me a ride. I just wanted to get home and go to sleep. So I said my goodbyes and started walking. I was around 1/3 of the way when I realized I made a mistake. I should have stayed and waited for my lame friend. That's when I saw some headlights coming toward me in the same direction I was walking. I stuck out my thumb and the car drove past me and kept going. Then another car came down the road and did the same thing. It was beginning to get very cold and there were some lightning flashes. I was getting ready to turn around and go back when I saw another car coming down the road, so I stuck out my thumb and it too drove past me. But as soon as it did, the brake lights came on and it pulled over. I started running up to the car, relieved I was finally going to get a ride and get out of the cold. As I approached the car, the driver's door opened and the driver got out. There was something totally wrong with the way he exited the vehicle. I mean, his body movements were sort of stiff and awkward. When I got closer, I started to say something when suddenly a bright lightning bolt flashed across the sky. It lit everything up, and I got a good glimpse of the driver. He looked like one of those mannequins you see in those big department stores. A blank facial expression with a slight smile, and the way it was walking. Man, I became incredibly frightened. Then the passenger door opened, and another occupant stepped out in the same awful manner. I could tell by its silhouette against the headlights shining down the road that it was female, and another lightning bolt flashed, revealing she, too, was a dummy. I think I screamed. Then I ran into the cornfield that was next to the road. The corn was almost 6 feet tall and had recently been irrigated because I was running in mud that was up to my ankles. I just kept going, not stopping. It was tiring running through the mud, and just for a few minutes I did stop to catch my breath. In that moment I could hear somewhere behind me the corn stalks being rustled. I was beginning to feel lightheaded and dizzy, like I was going to pass out. Then I heard car doors slamming shut and the sound of the car driving away. I didn't go back to the highway. No way, I was too scared. I kept plodding through the cornfield until I came out the other side. That's when I sort of collapsed. I was shaking all over. I stayed there for at least an hour before I headed back to San Joaquin. To this day, when I think back, it could have been someone playing a joke just to scare people. I don't know. They looked real to me, and it was like a nightmare. I'm still not quite sure if what I'm about to tell you actually happened or not. It could have been a really bad nightmare. At least that's what I've been trying to tell myself for years now. Has anyone ever heard of the Pig Lady? Well, when I heard of her, I was around 12 years old in 2005. I had stayed over at a friend's house and we stayed up all night telling each other scary stories. Then one girl told us about the Pig Lady. She said that it's someone who has a woman's body with the face of a pig. You have to say her name 3 times and she would appear and chase you. There was no way that I believed that. Then she said it actually happened to her and some old friends of hers before. She told me about how the pig lady had chased them through the woods. I didn't believe a word that she was saying, but I played along anyway. After a moment, she decided to say her name 3 times. Pig lady, pig lady, pig lady. Nothing happened. I decided that it was just an old scare myth that wasn't the least bit true. After the stories were over and we went to sleep, it was thundering and lightning outside. Since the bed was right under the window and we had no curtains up, everyone made me sleep on the side of the bed directly under the window. Both of my friends had went to sleep before me, and I had stayed awake listening to the rain. Then, all of a sudden, there was a bolt of lightning, and I could have sworn in that split second that I had saw someone standing at that window. But as soon as I blinked my eyes, they were gone. I kept telling myself that I was just imagining things, and that I had to fall asleep and in the morning everything would be fine. When I woke the next morning, my 2 friends decided they wanted to walk to the store. So I got up, took a bath, got dressed, and was ready to go. As we walked, again we started talking about the pig lady, and again one of my friends said her name 3 times. Then, we all yelled at her at the top of our lungs 3 times. The next thing we knew, we heard footsteps behind us. On the specific road we were on, there was nothing but trees around us. My friend's house was the only house on that road, and the nearest neighbors were close to the store almost another mile away. All of us were afraid to look behind us, but every time we stopped walking, the footsteps stopped as well. Do you all hear that too? One of the girls asked me. Hear what? I asked, being in denial. Before anyone could respond, I decided to turn my head for just a second to see exactly what was going on, and immediately I wished I didn't. The sight I saw was the worst thing I had ever seen in my life. It was a woman dressed in a blue jumpsuit with a baseball cap on. As soon as I looked behind me, she lifted her head, and I saw the face of a pig. I took off running and screaming without looking back. I knew that my friends were somewhere behind or beside me because I could hear their screams over my own. When we reached the store 10 minutes later, I took a chance and looked behind me again, but I saw nothing. I didn't stop running until I got inside the store though, and I didn't see a trace of anything but me and my friends. We looked at each other, all out of breath and not sure if what just happened actually happened. We called the girl's mom and asked her to pick us up because we saw a strange guy watching us. To this day, we swore that it never actually happened. We swore it was just our own imagination. But how could we all have imagined the same thing? And how did that person just up and disappear? These are the questions that we have avoided throughout the years, and will continue to avoid.